give quite a bit of wait time for the public to participate.
Okay, so while we're waiting for the public, we did receive an email from a staff member regarding public comment. I did ask Chelsea to contact him, and he was not able to attend the meeting tonight. So I could just kind of summarize his email to the board.
Sure.
So this is Ken Oakes, who is a special education teacher in the district at Lyman Memorial High School. He wanted the board to be aware of concerns that have arisen around an application called TikTok. And so TikTok is a video app that has become very popular with people. But there are concerns that have been raised that the TikTok app is also one that gains access to private information. You might be aware that, so he announces in his communication that, the President Trump is trying to stop TikTok from being used within the United States. And so he just wants to make the board aware of this. And he also encourages the board, if it would want to ban TikTok from use within the school system.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any members of the public that would like to participate tonight? If so, you can go ahead and participate. I'm sorry that I won't be able to field questions by seeing you, but if you can just go ahead and talk. If we have more than one person at the same time, then we will try to take turns. So the public will allocate 30 minutes, and each individual speaker has 2 minutes. So if there's anybody that'd like to participate, they can go ahead and speak now.
Hi, this is Jamie Mork. I just wanted to take a minute and just thank Rita specifically. I know our administration has been working so hard, and Rita just spent over an hour answering questions from parents live during our beginning of our PTA meeting. And I do not know of any other principal in any district that has done that. And I just wanted to make sure that, everybody is aware of what she's doing for us. I think that's what a lot of parents needed, and it was so appreciated. And I just wanted to just kind of say in front of the board, we appreciate her and want to thank her very much.
Awesome. Thank you, Jamie. And thank you, Rita. Are there any other members of the public that would like to speak tonight?
Just a reminder, it's *6 to unmute yourself from the phone.
Hi, this is Dan King. How are you?
Hi there.
Hey, I have a couple questions. I don't know if you're able to answer them, but if you're able to, I'd appreciate it. The first one is, do we know that all the classrooms or areas that the students will be learning are ventilated?
Okay, Dan, go ahead and ask your other question, and I think that we will answer that question tonight.
Okay. This one is about communication. If a child or teacher is sick or has symptoms of COVID or test positive, will the parents with children in that classroom be notified?
Yeah, another excellent question. So I think, again, part of that question may not be answered today, but I think that we will be able to identify an avenue for district administration to answer those questions. We'll definitely identify that avenue tonight. Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions, Dan?
Yes, good evening, Sarah.
Can you say that one more time?
Hi, Sarah, can you hear me? This is Kevin Swipla.
Yes, go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, just to touch base on the letter that Bob read earlier, I know TikTok is owned by a Chinese company, in China, and they do collect a huge amount of information. They do use cookies. They will save browser history. So it's probably not the most advantage, to our students. I don't know how you would stop them, but obviously it's they are a data collecting system. So I don't know if a child would realize the potential harm that they're getting themselves into by using such an app. I just wanted to reiterate that to the board.
Great, thanks, Kevin. Are there any other members of the public that would like to participate? All right, thank you to those of you who have participated and asked questions and given some feedback. So I think that's really important that we hear that. All right, so we'll move on to the consent agenda. Are there any board members that would like to make a motion?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, that was motioned by Nicole, seconded by John. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, and now I don't have any of you on my screen right now, so you'll need to say something in order to pop up on my screen, I believe.
Nicole says yes.
Thank you.
Alexis says yes.
Matt Smith says yes.
Mark, yes.
Danelle says yes.
And John, yes.
Great. Dawn, are you here? Thank you, Dawn. Okay, that's unanimous. Motion passes to approve the consent agenda. All right, we'll move on to our reports of committees. The governance committee did meet. I also sent out a new list of committee chairs. Handing off the curriculum subcommittee to Danelle, graciously accepted. Thank you very much. And made just a couple of adjustments, really not a lot. We added an additional member to the curriculum because of the impact right now and the priorities and our goals. But we took one member away from enrollment communications and goals for the time being temporarily, only until the next cycle, so December. So we'll have another conversation about that once that comes around. Did I miss anything for governance, Alexis? And Maureen's not with us tonight, but I don't think so. All right, so we'll move on to reports, the rest of the reports of committees. How about finance and facilities? Nicole, do you want to start?
Oh my, starting with me this time. That's a first. Okay, so we just had our meeting half an hour ago. And the first item on the agenda was the facilities update, because we are getting ready to put teachers and students in these buildings, and it's a giant priority that they are all safe. And so we started talking about the exhaust fans in all three buildings. Kevin Franks reported that the exhaust fans are functional, and he is replacing the exhaust fans on an annual basis, so they should be up and running. myself, Sarah, and Alexis will be doing a walkthrough of all three buildings this Friday, and that will be one of the things we are checking. Let's see, then we talked about how, let's see, the filters. So the filters were ordered. Kevin reported that if we get a MERV 11 or 13, that should be enough to protect the students and staff from the virus or any bacteria. However, they are on back order. So he hopes they will be here in 2 weeks. If not, we're going to have to revisit what we're going to do about that, because currently they have MERV 8 filters on, but those are not approved by the CDC. So hopefully that will be in before the 31st and hopefully before the 24th, because that's when all the staff is coming back as well. So we have to protect them as well.
Nicole,
Yep.
Matt, I'm sorry to interrupt you, and I'm sorry I didn't make the earlier meeting. I had a similar situation with my home, and has he looked into getting maybe a MERV 14 or 15, which actually would be more effective than we would need, but those tend to be less back ordered.
We talked about that. We were going to look into getting the 16s. However, Kevin reports that the systems at the three schools, especially LMS and Lyman, are a little bit antiquated. So he thinks that those filters would overload the system, and we certainly don't want that. So we're going to try the 11s or the 13s to start off with. Okay, and then we talked about COVID purchases. Currently, we've spent about $120,000 in COVID purchases. That includes cleaning supplies, masks, and the plexiglass shields for teacher desks and some student desks. So we are using last year's budget and SIP money for these purchases, and we are watching that to see we're watching to see if the state is also going to kick in some money, which they said they would. And that's that. And then we talked about the budget for the 2021. And right now, everything seems okay. We're not under budget, over budget. We seem to be doing well. So as we make more purchases for COVID, teacher hires, and any other purchases that need to be made, we're going to be watching that. The end. Any questions?
I have a question. Well, before I ask a question, I just want to make one comment, and I think everybody can hear me. I can't see anybody. I can see Mark. That's the only person I can see. I don't know why, but hi, Mark. I said this before, that this platform does not really do our board meetings justice, and I know that hopefully we'll be moving away from virtual. However, the fact that we can't see each other is really a problem, and I know that there are other platforms in which we could hold a meeting where we could see each other. So I'm hoping that we can have that conversation, and again, I mentioned it before. So my question is about the MERV, whatever number, in 2 weeks. At what point are we going to decide whether we have adequate ventilation for our schools? Like 2 weeks, and then saying they're not in yet seems like an emergency at that point.
So, I mean, I'll give you my opinion. So we're going to do a walkthrough this Friday, Dawn, and we're going to be checking the ventilation system, the spacing, safety measures, like a lot of different things. And at that point, then we're going to talk about it and see what else is needed. And if there are any adjustments that need to be made or anything different that we need to do, then that's the point where we're going to get like a report this Friday.
So if the ventilators, if the MERV systems do not come in, does that mean that our schools will not be able to open?
That's a question for Bob.
So yeah, I could jump in on that. So we do have in our plan that the ventilation system improvements are supposed to be in place 1 week prior to the start of school. So it is concerning that the MERV, so we have in the plan that the filters will be the MERV 13 filters. So it is troubling that those filters are on back order. that suggestion just a little while ago about looking at the 14s or the 15s, at the conversation I'll follow up with Kevin French. He did look at the 16s and found that they are too thick for our air handlers to handle in most situations. And so I don't know if that's the same is true for the 14s or the 15s. So I'll follow up with him on that if those are more readily available. The CDC recommends the 11s or the 13s, and so we had gone with the 13. If we don't have the ventilation system up and running, I will bring that to the board and I'll make a recommendation as to whether or not we can open.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Bob. I'm sure that that's important information for all of us to have, and it's settling, to know that it's going to be imperative that we have the proper ventilation system. All right, thank you. Any other questions for Nicole or comments? Okay, moving on. How about safety and security, Alexis?
Safety and security did not meet. We hope to meet when, if and when we open school.
Okay, thank you. Dawn, communications, goals, and enrollment?
We did not meet.
Okay, so Maureen is not here for policy. However, you will notice she did include first reading for some COVID-19 policies. And full disclosure, the policy committee has not met. The policy committee was supposed to meet this past week, but we were canceled due to the power outage, like facilities also last week. So we are asking for a first reading tonight. However, we're not voting on it, but just it's in the packet for the board review. I understand there may be some policies that are not included in the packet, but Maureen will be in touch. Policy is going to meet, I believe, Thursday or late this week or early next week to get a better idea of what our recommendation will be to the board. But we do have to have some of these COVID policies in place before the school year starts. So it is a good possibility that we will need a special meeting for that. And I know that it will come up later on in the meeting that we will need a special meeting for other things as well this month. Okay. How about superintendent evaluation, John?
Yeah, hi. Before I start my report, I just want to apologize. My power came on today, and one casualty of it is apparently my camera on my computer. So it's not the platform for me, it's my computer. Anyway, the superintendent's evaluation committee did not meet this past month. We are on the agenda today to further that process along. So that's about it.
Thanks, John. And then Danelle, brand new to curriculum, you haven't met yet
We
either.
haven't met yet, but we look forward to hiring and meeting a new curriculum director during this tumultuous time.
Exactly. Very soon, I hope. Okay, and how about negotiations, Mark?
Okay, I'm on, right? Negotiations has not met, but we are talking with two unions for the IAs and the secretaries, and my understanding is we're looking for after August 23rd, looking to try to set up a time for those initial discussions. And
Great.
welcome Danelle to that. Welcome Danelle to that group also.
Welcome, Danelle. Okay, and then Matt, EastCon.
Yeah, they're struggling with trying to reopen and get things up and running, much like we are. Not a whole lot happened at the last meeting that I was involved with because I'm a non-voting member, and we went into executives. They went into executive session, so I wasn't to be part of that. The other thing that I wanted to say is the platform is not It's not the platform's problem on my end. My wife was brilliant and she suggested that I go up into the attic and I could get just enough signal to hear you guys on my platform, but I can't get you a picture. That's it.
Well, we'll take what we can get from everybody today. Thank you. All right, that'll do it for the reports of the committees, I believe. Moving on to the report of the superintendent. Item number 1 is new hires.
Yes, so in your packet, you do have a list of the hires that we've been making this summertime. The brand new ones are the ones that are in blue. So that is Amber Coombe, who will be the new part-time social studies teacher at the high school. Brandon Strout will be our new PE health teacher at the high school. Brandon is known to the district. He is our wrestling coach. Michael Jaffe is hired as the new chemistry physical science teacher at the high school. Amanda West has been hired as an instructional assistant at the elementary school, as has Victory Hilario, instructional assistant at LES. Later on in the meeting, there is an action item that I'm asking the board consideration on, and that is for a 1-year temporary position at the elementary school for 4th grade. That is our largest. Those classes are our largest classes due to having 3 teachers with that group at 4th grade. Because of that, we have concerns about overcrowding in those rooms and not being able to maintain appropriate social distancing. So this is the one teaching position that we've identified where we will need it under COVID-19 restrictions around social distancing. So the elementary school has a room for the class to move into, but we would need an additional teacher to create appropriate class sizes in order to maintain safe distances in the classroom.
Can I ask a question? It's John, sorry. I'm wondering about, there was a move of a 4th grade teacher to another grade. And so I'm just wondering about the process of determining moving a teacher who was already in 4th grade and then hiring an interim.
So the move was made because, we were hopeful that we were going to be able to open, without restrictions. And if there were restrictions that were going to be imposed, we just didn't know what they were going to be. We already knew that based on the enrollment in other grade levels that staffing changes at the elementary school had to be made. And so we knew that we were going to have to move teachers from one grade to another. And so we went ahead and made that move. Then we learned about the restrictions. And so we end up with not being able to meet really safe social distancing in 4th grade. And so we end up needing a teacher there. We would have needed the teacher in the other grade anyway. I will tell the board that there is another option. Another way to handle this would be, so we have reading support staff at the elementary school, right? We have 2 teachers that provide reading support in addition to the reading specialist. Another possible solution would be to take a reading support teacher and move that teacher into the 4th grade classroom. The reason why I'm not recommending that is because we are concerned, as has been spoken at board meetings in the past, about any learning gaps that may have occurred during distance learning. And so we're feeling like we need the support staff. And so that's why I'm asking for an additional classroom teacher and not just moving a reading teacher into the classroom.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
All right, so that's staffing. There is one other, a couple other things I should let you know about staffing, and it kind of rolls into number 3 on my report, but I won't go directly into that. In the reopening plan, we did have in the plan that we would like to have bus monitors at least for the first month of school, and that I had explained to the board when I presented the plan that we would see if we had instructional assistants that may want additional hours to ride the bus as monitors. It turns out that we don't. We had very limited interest from the IAs, and there is no way we could do it with IA staff. And so we are in the process of thinking about other ways we may be able to provide bus monitors. But if I'm unable to do that, that would be something that I would have to take out of the plan. I wouldn't want anything in the plan that we weren't going to be able to do. So we would, so I'm still trying to solve that problem, but it's one that not only this district is facing. People either are not available to ride the bus at twice a day or et cetera. So it has been difficult. The other piece is we have the isolation room at each of the schools. And so the isolation room is for when a student may have COVID-19. They're exhibiting symptoms of COVID-19, which is yet to be determined, right? So we isolate the child, we call the parents, we have the parents pick the child up and then follow through on that. And so the students need to be supervised in the isolation room. We are looking at hiring certified nursing assistants, CNAs, for that position. So we do have it posted, but we have not yet, interviewed anybody. So that posting just occurred recently. So we had been in discussion with our nursing staff in district on how best we might staff that. And what we settled on is a CNA position. We felt like some medical background would be good for that position.
Bob, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Okay, in talking about the buses, first of all, is this a position that we can post? Like, can we post that we need bus monitors, like in the paper?
So that is one potential solution, Nicole. In my talking with other superintendents, they have not been so successful, but that doesn't mean it wouldn't work in our community. So
Okay.
that is a potential solution.
And how many buses do we have? 17?
I think we're going to be running 16 this year.
So we need 16 monitors.
Yeah. And I've asked a question about whether or not this would be a good position for volunteers. And the answer came back, probably not. Volunteers would not be the best way to solve this solution, to solve this problem. So
Okay.
we'll look to make hires.
And then the other thing about the buses is, are the bus drivers going to be informed? Because there's approximately 18-20% that are not coming or not riding buses. Are they going to be informed on which stops to make, or are they expected to make every single stop and see who's out there?
No, so we are working with Lisa Latour, who is the manager there.
Yeah.
And so she and another person at the bus company set up the routes. And so bus drivers will be given their routes based on the known bus riders.
Okay. And they will be given that before August 31st?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
bus drivers usually do a test drive prior to the start of the school year, especially if they're new to the bus route.
Okay. And my last question is, if we cannot hire 16 bus monitors, are we running those buses without them?
So we would run buses without them, and we would put on a concerted effort to communicate with parents about appropriate bus protocol, something that would also be reinforced with students at school.
Okay. That's good information for the public to know that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question in terms of the buses as well. I think I'm a little bit confused about what's our responsibility versus what's the bus company, their responsibility, because we contract with them. So why are we hiring bus monitors versus them hiring bus monitors?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Bus monitors are not a part of the bus contract. So if we were to ask the bus company to hire, there would be additional costs for that. And so when we have the need for students to be monitored on the bus now, we usually have a district staff member that does that.
So it's a decision between having none and an additional cost, is what you're saying right now. If no matter what, we're going to hire, and so that's an additional cost for our district. And if we can't hire, then we're going to go with none, or we could contact the bus company and say we need bus monitors. So there's the additional cost.
Yeah, so I don't know that the bus company would have any more success in hiring the monitors either, but that is another potential solution to work through the bus company for monitors. But I could tell you that I've already had preliminary conversations or emails with M&J personnel, and they are recommending I get the monitors. So they must know it's a difficult position to fill. Okay.
Well, maybe there's somebody listening right now that would be happy to take on one of those positions.
Bob?
Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I just had a thought. Is there the bus monitors? What is their job going to be? And then I'll go forward with my thought. They're just going to be basically to maintain distancing between personnel on the bus, correct?
Monitoring the students wearing masks as they enter the bus. So if a student doesn't have a mask on, they'll ask the student to put a mask on. And then if the student doesn't have a mask, they will provide a mask for the student.
Well, I think maybe we could solve 50% of the problem. Maybe on each of the senior buses or the buses that go to the high school, could it be possible to hire one of the like 16 or 17-year-old kids that ride the bus to perform that task? I think, I know my sons would have been very capable at that age to carry something like that out. I mean, they worked at, Subway and all that other kind of stuff at that age.
That's a very interesting thought, Matt. We certainly do use our students for babysitting, etc., daycare during meetings sometimes. So that's an interesting thought. Thank you for putting that out there.
All right, that's all I had. Thank you.
All right, so the next piece on my agenda here is the building walkthrough. And so Nicole has already announced that the building walkthrough will be this Friday. She announced that some of the board members would be there, but this is something that all board members are invited to every year. So please feel free. We will start at 8:30 in the morning at Lyman, and then we will move to the middle school, and then we will move to the elementary school. The walkthroughs can take up to an hour depending on what you want to see. So it could be, 3 hours, to get through all three buildings. This walkthrough is being scheduled earlier in the calendar than normal based upon Board of Ed availability. And so the buildings are not going to be as far along in getting ready for the opening of school as they normally are, but you'll get to see the buildings in progress. Okay, but they will not be, they won't look the way they usually look when we do the walkthroughs, right? There could still be furniture dumped out of classrooms in the hallways, et cetera, because we're doing this a good week earlier than normal.
Well, we're also only about 6 days before some new staff begins. And also it would look different anyway because of COVID, right? So it's gonna look a lot different. Bob, can you just list the people that you have invited aside from the Board of Ed?
So I will be inviting folks from the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen. So I'll be sending an email out to them. I just needed to get the date confirmed before I sent invites out.
Okay, and also along with us would be, I'm assuming, Kevin and John.
So, right. So each principal generally attends the walkthrough of their building. And then a facilities director, which is Kevin. And we have in the past had our maintenance worker also attend that. This year, the Board of Ed's Finance and Facilities Subcommittee has asked that our maintenance worker attend that as well. So we will have him there as well. And then I will be there. Occasionally, someone from the media has also attended.
It's also possible to get our building inspector involved at the process too. I think it would be valuable to have him walk through with you to see if he spots anything that has been changed and potentially could be a problem.
So I could let him know. He has attended in the past. And so if he would like to come, he's more than welcome. So I will extend the invite.
Great. Thanks, Bob.
You're welcome.
Can I ask Bob one more question? This is not on your superintendent's report, but I'm just curious because I didn't see the, can you tell us about enrollment? I heard that there's some more families that enrolled. Do you have any information on that?
So, yes. So I don't have numbers, and I'm not sure all the new enrollees have made it into the computer yet. But Rita has reported to me that they are seeing an uptick in enrollment as we saw last year at the elementary level. So, when we discussed enrollment at the end of last year and even prior to that, the projection for next year was still going to be a decrease in overall enrollment across the district. So I don't have those final numbers yet. But I think similar to what we saw last year and a little bit the year before is we're starting to see increased enrollment at the elementary grades.
Okay.
So this is a nice trend to see occurring on a year after year basis, right?
So that information will be available for the next meeting, correct?
We could have that for September, the September board meeting.
Yep. Great. Perfect.
You're welcome.
One other thing, Bob, when you do find out these people that are enrolling that are new to the town, is there some way that you can, I'm not sure how to phrase this, make sure that they complete the latest census information so that we get credit for the people that have moved into our town when it comes to funding distribution and stuff like that?
Yeah, so I don't know about that, Matt. I guess it would depend on when, if they've already filled out. Like, that's not a normal question that we ask people that move into town. Have you already filled out the census? And if you didn't, please fill it out now.
Well, it is the census year. That's the only reason I'm asking.
Yeah. So we have not been doing that, I'm sure, Matt. But I I will be sending a communication out to parents this week, so I could put a little plug in there about the census.
I think that would be very valuable.
I have a question, also not listed in the superintendent report, but I'm curious about the most recent survey that went out to families. I didn't see any results, so I'm wondering about that.
Yeah, so that's going to be under the reopening schools. I'm going to give you some updates on a few different things.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So are we ready for that then?
We're ready.
Okay, so reopening schools. The very first thing I have is surveys. So we recently sent out 2 surveys. One to parents, and it was a short and sweet kind of a survey, but we did ask parents to fill it out one time for each of their children. So we've had, I think at the last time I looked, 835 responses to the survey. 79% of the respondents were saying that they would return their children to in-school instruction, and 21% were going to be opting for distance learning. And so that's about 175 kids, that 21%. We also asked parents who were going to be opting for distance learning to fill out a form and then submit that. Now we had the power outage. We left that survey open, so in case any more responses come in, I had asked parents to submit that distance learning opt-out form or opt-in form for distance learning submit that to us by last Friday. But again, the power outage interfered with that. I am going to be sending out a communication to parents reminding them of that form. We have received a little over 100 of those forms, but not nearly the 175 that are indicated in the survey. And so we'll be following up on that with the forms. This other survey that was recently sent out went to district staff. And so this is EEOC approved question. And it says basically if you have one of these 4 things that are listed below, would you or would you not be able to come to school, right? And so if they answer, and so I explained this to the staff, if they answer no, that means they're coming in. If they answer yes, that means that they would not be able to come in. And so I took a look at that just prior to this meeting. We had 125 responses, and this went out to everybody in the district. There were 9 people that had indicated that they would not be able to return to in-school work. And so now I'll have to follow up with each of them. Some of them have started to email me, but I will need to follow up with them to find out the reasons. There are rules with, ADA compliance, et cetera, that we might have to make accommodations for certain situations. But this situation is not the same as what we experienced in the spring, where the governor closed schools and we sent all the kids home. And then, the expectation was, for our district staff to be able to meet the needs of our students through a distance learning platform. We're planning on reopening with kids in the school. So I need people to be able to come into school. And so we'll have to, for those folks that are not able to come in, I have to work with them, based on employment laws, et cetera, to see whether or not we are going to be able to have positions for them where they can work from home, even though we have students in our schools. And so I'll be working with those staff members on that. So right now it's relatively few.
Bob, are they teachers or are they IAs or are they a mix of everything?
They're a mix of everything.
Okay.
Right. So, 3 or 4, well, there's only 9. So, 2 or 3 of different groups. Okay. So, that's the 2 surveys. So the staff survey closed today, but again, I didn't close it to answers because everybody had loss of power, right? And so they may need a little bit more time to get in there and answer. But 125 is a good percent of our district employees.
Can I ask? Sorry.
Oh,
I have a question about the survey to parents. 835 responses. How many responses have we not received?
So,
based on the number we know we have.
Yeah, so I went on and I took a look at what the current enrollment number is in the district, and that's 963, I think it was. So there were
so more than 100.
Yeah, a little bit more than 100 parents have not yet been able to respond or didn't respond. The 835 or so responses that we did get is more than we got earlier when I surveyed parents. So, there's some follow-up that's going to happen.
Understandable. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. As we heard earlier tonight, we've been making purchases towards a safe opening of school. So there's been equipment or supplies that have been purchased. These include various PPE, so masks, gloves, gowns, face shields. We've ordered plexiglass barriers, desktop plexiglass barriers. You may have seen them if you've gone into the school offices or come into the central office. We have some of them already in place, but we're ordering, they're on order, additional plexiglass barriers for teacher desks and some student desks across the district. That's one of our bigger expenses right now. We've ordered 6 tents to place on the school grounds, 2 for each school. At the elementary school, they could be used for outdoor recess, mass breaks, perhaps some outdoor learning for students in a covered environment. We are worried about, exposure to the sun and heat, etc. But they'll also be at the high school and the middle school. So again, for the same purposes, if teachers want to bring their kids outside, I know that Jay was talking about having one in his little courtyard area outside the cafeteria, and maybe on nice days setting up cafeteria tables out there for kids to have lunch, etc. And so we have those on order. We're purchasing them because rental fees, once you get into the second month, the rental fee becomes greater than the cost of purchase. And so we're able to find a supplier. We should be able to take delivery of 4 of the tents prior to the start of the school year. And then the remaining 2 should be in within a week or 2 of the start of the school year. We'll have 2 installed at the elementary school right off the bat because we want to be able to give our elementary students those outdoor mass breaks in a tented area if possible.
Bob, plexiglass, when do you anticipate the plexiglass to be delivered?
So as we heard earlier at the finance and facilities meeting, the vendors have been promising us delivery, and then sometimes it doesn't happen. And so Kevin has been having frequent communications with vendors to get the deliveries in. So we had expected to take delivery of the plexiglass barriers prior to the start of the school year. But we keep inching closer to the start of the school year, and they're all not here yet, right? And so that becomes one of our unknowns, unfortunately. So we order from vendors who say they have the equipment, and then they either don't have it or only have some of it. Even, we found a great vendor for the tents, and that vendor came in at half the price of other vendors. And we were told that there were 6 tents, and then we were told there's only 4, right? And so we're going to take delivery of the 4 and wait on the other 2. And it's just because everybody wants tents. Everybody wants these plexiglass barriers. Everybody, and so everybody's trying to buy all at the same time. And the vendors are promising, making sales, and then sometimes not able to deliver.
Yeah. And the tents, I think, were ordered way back in late June, early July. Is that true?
So, no, they were actually ordered more recently because the vendors that we were contacting during that time. So that was when I gave the approval, go ahead and order tents.
Yeah.
So then we were contacting vendors, and the vendors didn't have them. And then we finally found a couple of vendors that had them, and then the one we went with came in at like half the price. And so it took us a while to find a vendor that actually had them in stock.
Okay.
And in the size that we wanted.
Yep.
How big are these tents?
These are going to be 20 by 40.
Those are big.
Yeah, they're big.
Is it possible for in just the tent case that you that families loan the schools the tents that we have in our garages or whatever it might be? Because I can pretty much guarantee about half the families listening, have one or know somebody that has one. If that's a possibility of donating it to the school or loaning it to the school, whatever that may be.
Yeah, so that's a possibility. There's always a risk of liability when you're using somebody else's personal equipment. Like, is it a commercial rated tent versus a personal use tent? And so those are just things that kind of muddy the water of people, wanting to help out, because we have certain restrictions that we're under regarding, being able to maintain safety and reduce liability. So if people have commercial grade tents and they want to contact the schools, we'd be interested in that, I guess. But I'm not so sure, just like a backyard tent or canopy for this situation.
So, what is the sorry, Bob, this is Matt. What is the rating on these tents as far as wind? Are they going to be taking down if we suspect high wind ratings every night, or what's the story with that? Because these tents may be good up to 25 miles an hour, but there are days around here where we get winds much higher than that. I have no idea what the ratings are on these devices. I'd hate to get all these wonderful tents and put them up and then have the wind come and rip them down and destroy them, and then not be able to buy new ones because they're just not available.
Yeah, I don't have that specifics available regarding the wind ratings on the tents.
Well, I think that's stuff that Kevin needs to look into and research and find out when they need to come up and go down, because that's something that's going to have to be taken care of by his department.
Yeah, I think we already have that information, Matt. I just don't have it handy, so I don't want to misspeak.
Okay.
Just a reminder, there is a big pavilion at Aspinall. If you're short on tents, that could be used for meeting outside. That's covered permanently.
Yeah, and so Rita is already reaching out to Sandy about possibly using that on occasion. Okay. So we also set up an email account that I sent out to parents if they wanted to ask questions. So that is reopening at LebanonCT.org, right? And so I put that in a letter out to parents. I will remind them of that in my communication that goes out this week. There have been, I think it was about 15 questions in there. Most of them were pertaining to the writer's specific situation with their child or children. There were some comments in there about preferring to open in a hybrid model versus a full reopening that our current situation is. And so that does kind of help segue me into a conversation with the board about opening into a hybrid. It is not because of the 3 or 4 parents that had mentioned that in their emails, but there are other concerns that are more recent that have prompted me to make a recommendation that we should open our schools in a hybrid model versus a full reopening. And so when I say full reopening, that's every student in the school for 5 days a week, right? Minus the ones that the parents are opting to continue with distance learning. So the hybrid model is one where the students are divvied up into 2 groups, Group A and Group B. Group A students would come to school Monday and Tuesday. All students would distance learn on Wednesday, and then on Thursday and Friday, Group B students would be in school for instruction. So while one group is in school, the other group is out doing distance learning. All students would distance learn on Wednesday. That's the day in between the 2 groups, and we would use that to make sure that the schools are clean and ready for the next group to come in on the following day. So, the reason that this is my recommendation is that we cannot find a way to maximize social distancing, primarily at our high school and middle school beyond 4 feet. We have concerns growing at the elementary school that we may not be able to meet it there either because of the some of the increased enrollments. That does have to be weighed against the kids who would be distance learning. But the concerns are that even at our elementary school, we were originally confident that we were going to get to 6 feet, throughout our instructional day. We're no longer so confident that we're going to be able to do that. There has been increased awareness of COVID-19 being spread by children, and also that students in age group, I think in particular, we've learned recently that students in the age groups of like 9 to 19, we're seeing an increase of COVID-19 cases, not just nationally, but it's been reported at the state level in Connecticut that there's an uptick in COVID-19 cases amongst our youth. I believe it was last week when our governor had Dr. Fauci on one of his press conferences, and Dr. Fauci was answering questions for the press, and he mentioned that young children can have like 20 times the amount of virus in their nasal pharynx and nasal passages than adults. And he said, so based on just the sheer amount of the virus that young children could be harboring in their bodies, that it's reasonable to suspect that they could also be transmitting it to each other and to adults. Opening in a hybrid allows us to have a transition experience similar to other segments of society that have been told that they need to open gradually, right? So education is really one of the few segments of our society that has been told to open in full. Most other segments have had a gradual reopen. And so that, people have been able to track the impact of the gradual opening. And we've seen the governor here, dial back on the reopening process in Connecticut based upon, COVID-19 incidences, right? He's delayed phases, et cetera, when he's felt it necessary. But a lot of people find it unusual that education has not been viewed the same way. The governor has allowed districts to make local decisions. Originally, we were told you have to open in full. That has to be the opening model unless there is a moderate increase of COVID-19 cases. Nobody had defined that for us. Recently, the definition has been 10 cases per 100,000 per capita, and that information was going to be shared as a county data point versus, a local data point. We certainly don't have 100,000 people in Lebanon. We have between 6,000 and 7,000 people. So that would mean for us, if we had 0.6 cases, we would become moderate. So that doesn't really make sense. So that's why it is a county-wide approach. But he also said that if local districts make a decision for hybrid based upon local concerns, constraints, et cetera, that would be acceptable. The one thing that the governor is still kind of holding firm on is opening directly into distance learning, right? And so that is not my recommendation. I'm letting the board know that I feel that we should open with the hybrid model, based upon, the points that I just outlined for the board. So this is something, the board has already approved the plan. Opening in full is part of the plan. Hybrid is also part of the plan, as is distance learning. I don't think the board necessarily has to take a vote if we move from one opening to the next. But I did want the board informed, and I certainly welcome a conversation from the board.
Okay, I'll start. If that's okay with you.
Go ahead, Nicole.
Okay, that's okay with you, Sarah. Okay, so it certainly fixes a lot of problems if you go to hybrid. Like, first of all, do you even need that new fourth grade teacher if you're going to split these classes in half?
So that's a great question. We would still need that fourth grade teacher. The plan would be to open in hybrid. And if we find that there is no, impact, no increased COVID-19 activity, et cetera, we could move back to full reopening, right? So the hybrid opening would be something that we would monitor at least for the first month of school. And if we are able to determine that, we feel that it's safer to increase the student population back into the school, then we would do that.
What is the population of those fourth grades right now?
So those class sizes are in the low 20s right now. And so we can't space them in a full reopening to get to 6 feet, right? So in fourth grade, we know that for sure, which is why I'm asking. Everywhere else, we were pretty positive we were going to get to fourth grade. The enrollment uptick did cause us a little bit of concern. We are going to have some elementary kids that will be distance learning. But the fourth grade numbers in particular, we feel that we need that teacher there.
But if you have low 20s and you split them in half, now you're sending about 11, 12 kids at a time. Could they fit in one classroom?
But Nicole, at this point, they're saying A through K and L through Z. So they cannot guarantee that any class is at a certain number. You know, like when Thursday, Friday could be 5 kids in a class, where Monday, Tuesday could be 15.
Yeah, so that's a great point, Dawn. We are not going to get a 50-50 split, right, based on the alphabet. So I have asked principals to take a look at their classes, and if they were to divide them by the alphabet, what do the splits look like? And if they have really uneven splits, can some students be rescheduled to make a better balance, right? So to answer your other part of the question there, though, Nicole, if we reduce the class size as close to 50% as possible, can we get 6 feet in the classroom? The answer to that is yes. So that is something that a hybrid model does allow us to do. But if we were to return back to the full reopening in school instruction, then we would be back at a number that we cannot provide the 6-foot distancing on. And that's why I would still need the 4th position there.
Okay, so then I guess the same argument could be made for the buses. If you're putting 50% of the kids on these buses, you don't know if on Monday and Tuesday you're going to have a bus with 10 kids on it, and then on Thursday, Friday you're going to have a bus with 40 kids on it.
So the bus
monitor.
Yeah, so the buses and the classrooms were never going to jive, right? So like we're cohorting the kids in the schools, but the cohorts are going to be mixed on the buses, right? Because we couldn't cohort by neighborhood, right? And so the busing and the classroom rules was always a bit of an inconsistency that, created anxieties for people, right? Because even though we were going to open in full, we were told maximize social distancing as best as possible. Except on the bus, we were told you could load that bus all the way up to full capacity, right? So there was always that inconsistency on the buses. If we open in hybrid and it's based upon our local decision and not because there are increased COVID-19 transmission rates in our community or surrounding communities, we wouldn't necessarily have to create 6-foot distances on the bus, right? So we would still maximize distancing on the bus as best as possible, but our buses would definitely not be at full capacity.
And the hybrid model also would support after-school sports?
So in our hybrid plan, we said that we would run after-school activities as best as we can, right? And so, the rub would be students on a after-school activity or on a sports team. If they're in school, right, they go right to practice at the end of the day. If they're home distance learning because it's either Wednesday or it's their group is in distance learning on Monday or Tuesday or Thursday or Friday, those kids would have to, get their own transportation to school for the practices. Yeah.
So, and it definitely addresses the social emotional piece, because having these kids stay home for the past 6 months, they need to be with each other. They need to be with their teachers. They need to see each other. It definitely is a win-win. The only burden you're putting on now are the parents that have to figure out how on earth they're going to do this.
Yeah. So, when you said earlier that opening in, you can see me holding my forehead because this stuff is, it's just very stressful for everybody.
Sure.
So we open in hybrid, it does solve some problems, right? But then it creates other problems, right? And so there are other solutions. And And so, then we have to work on those solutions.
Yep.
And speaking of those solutions, Bob, we haven't talked about it very much, but you did mention the email that is set up for parents to ask questions. I think that parents have a lot of questions right now, and we still have questions, right? But I'm wondering, what will the avenue be? Like, for example, a couple of questions that were asked this morning Wow. Earlier in the meeting, how will parents get answers to the questions they ask, either, with an email with the administration or through this reentry email? How can they expect to get answers? And what have we set up? I know that Rita had made a couple of those handy videos, posted them on and sent them out via Thrill Share for, answering some questions. What will the classroom look like? And I think that type of thing is really what families in the community want to see and hear. So I'm wondering, what are the next steps so that we can inform the community about the questions that are asked, the answers that need to be, addressed, and, some concerns that they might have.
All right. So the emails that have been coming into the COVID, the reopening at LebanonCT.org email address, I've been answering them right now because there have been relatively few. And when needed, I copy an administrator on that if it's something that is best answered by a principal, let's say. I had thought that there might be enough emails in there that it would generate like a frequently asked question kind of document where I could answer those questions on that document and then send those out. But right now there haven't been enough, so I've been answering them independently. So I have spoken with the administration about the videos. You saw that Rita has already started that. But I believe that we'll see some of those videos also coming from our other two schools. Rita's building is just farther along in the prep process than the other two schools are at this time. And so that could be a reason why we haven't seen the videos out of the other two schools.
I do think that the frequently asked questions document would be an excellent idea and a great place for people to go to see if they have, because chances are if they have a question, their neighbor might have the same question. So I think that that's a really good place to start.
Yeah. And then
Bob, I didn't know if I could just add. It's me, Rita. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I think that would be okay.
I do have all the questions that were fielded from the meeting today, and I can get them all to you as well. Because I answered probably 14 questions in my meeting today that would be pertinent and helpful to other families.
That would be great, Rita. Thank you.
Okay.
I have a question. Can you, based on the hybrid model, Bob, can you tell us what the educational experience for our children, but also what our teachers will experience at each school? So starting at the elementary school, what would a typical week look like in our classrooms?
So the teachers would all across the district, the teachers would all be, continuing to report to school to teach the students that are here. We are still working out the details on how to address the students that have either opted for distance learning or the ones that would be now, being told that you're going to be distance learning on either Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, or Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. But the talk has been with the curriculum subcommittee of the reopening committee that we would be utilizing synchronous and asynchronous learning for the kids that are in the distance learning. And that has to be gauged based upon age and developmental status of the students. So at the elementary school, in particular with our youngest students, there's a concern about having too much screen time for those younger kids, right? The board will recall that we did purchase iPads for our younger students. And so we will be providing devices for those students. And so there will be some screen time activities for those kids, some of which will be synchronous and some of it will be assigned. Also for some of our younger students, and maybe even into some of the upper elementary or perhaps even into the middle school, there could be assignment packs that go out to the kids for distance learning, similar to what we were doing in the springtime, where we provided hard copies of assignments versus electronic copies of assignments.
So is there any plan to have designated teachers who do all of the distance learning, whether it's full distance learning or the Monday, Tuesday cohort when they're not in the classroom? Or
so that's still a possibility. We haven't scheduled anybody to be specifically a distance learning teacher or a distance learning support staff. We were going to keep all the kids with their assigned teacher, and the teacher would be working with the kids who are distance learning as well as the students in the classroom. Part of the mechanisms to do that would be to provide, live streaming of certain lesson activities. There would be live meetings through the Google software, Google Meet, Google Classroom, etc., where kids would be logging in at certain times for certain lesson activities. And then there's teachers, who would pre-record certain lesson aspects. It's called flipping the classroom, where they pre-record things, post them for their students. The expectation would be that the students would view those videos prior to a synchronous learning activity that the teacher would have with the students. And so we're looking at different models. We've ordered some webcams for the teaching staff that would facilitate some of the video type work that they would be doing with their students.
so at the elementary level, I can't speak to the middle school or the high school because I imagine the plan there is very different. But at the elementary school level, we are expecting students to join based on the schedule that we determine versus the schedule that the families can make happen.
So there is always going to be some flexibility here. But one of the things that we've learned through the earlier surveys is that both our staff and our parents wanted more accountability for the kids, right? And so we've had parents let us know that if their child's attendance was being taken, that would be something that would help them get their child onto the devices. And so it's something that, was asked for in the home, right? That there would be some synchronous activity that is going on with the learning. So the only way to establish a synchronous activity is to schedule it, right? And so for parents who schedule will not allow that to happen, there's going to have to be communication with those parents to the teachers. And then, of course, just as we did in the springtime, if we find that there are kids that are not logging in either at all or missing certain classes, then we will follow up directly with those kids and families about why that's occurring.
And we know we can't compare this to the spring because everybody was kind of locked down in the spring, and this is a very different situation now. So I'm hoping that we can really have a very clear conversation about specific teachers who focus on the online aspect, because for example, I can't imagine my kids being home and then their teacher having to schedule classes with their time with them while they also have in-person students with them. So my point is, I'm hoping that we can have an honest, real conversation about teachers who will be focusing on the online aspect. Because I don't think we can ask our teachers to do it all. I don't think that's fair. So.
I'm gonna read it.
So does anybody have any other questions for Bob about the recommendation to the hybrid model? Because I do feel like, even as a board, we have so many questions, and I'm sure Bob still has so many questions, and Rita and all the other administrative team that need to be ironed out and then communicated in a clear, consistent way to all of us, So that's kind of why I'm wondering if maybe we need to have one night specifically devoted to what hybrid's going to look like, if or whatever the model is that we end up going with. Right now it's looking like hybrid, right?
Yeah.
Right. So I'm hoping that we can give that some thought and come up with a time that we can field questions and present to the community what exactly what hybrid is looking like with all of those questions answered.
That's a fair expectation, and I'd be happy to get that set up.
Thank you.
I'm also wondering though about the ventilation issue, because if we don't have ventilation in, then we're not opening. So what is our timeline? I'm just feeling like all of these things should have been answered already, and a plan, which I understand everything is changing. However, I cannot plan for my fall experience with my children and my work until I know what the school situation is going to look like.
Yeah. I mean, I'm in the same boat. I think we all need to know yesterday, right?
Yeah.
So sooner rather than later. Danelle, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I do have a lot of questions. I feel frankly blindsided as a board member that this option is suddenly the first thing on the table to start in less than 3 weeks. We were given 3 options. We've met all the benchmarks for a full opening. There's 79% support from the community to send their kids in full. It seemed like the first concern was because you're not able to get 6-foot distancing in all the classrooms. However, they're all going to be wearing masks, and therefore 6-foot distancing is not required. So I'm a little bit confused about the reasoning behind this.
So that is one piece, right? The 6 feet social distancing. And then it is the new information that has been coming out regarding the uptick in youth catching COVID-19, the information that has been disseminated regarding young people having actually more of the virus in their nasal passages than adults. It is the need or a desire to have a gradual reopening similar to other segments in society that have been gradually reopening so that the impact of reopening can be monitored and changes can be made if necessary. And then we would have a better understanding on whether or not we feel it's safe to bring everybody back all at once. The original decision to bring everybody back all at once was really not a decision that districts had control over. We were told that we were opening all at once. All right, that came down from the state. And as soon as the state gave districts local flexibilities, I'm sure you're reading about it in the paper, there are lots of districts that are switching to the hybrid reopening. And for the same or similar reasons that I'm outlining for you tonight.
Okay.
Right?
Say something? So two things. One is, definitely with the hybrid model, I really want to pay a lot of attention to our teachers. They're going to be teaching kids in a classroom and doing computer synchronous learning at the same time. And they're going to be worried about their own safety as well as the safety of our students. So whatever help and support that our teachers need, I know they're very hard workers and they're very dedicated to their jobs. We really got to support them in what they need. And number two is, you're going to have some professional development the week of the 24th. And I'm hoping that it centers around how they're going to do this. And, I'm hoping that they're going to, use each other as resources and, really get down the Google Meet and the Google Classroom, the Seesaw platform, whatever they're going to use to instruct their kids and really feel good about it, because I'm a little worried about their emotional well-being as well. They're like, the warriors here. And I really hope that they do it in such a way that takes the burden off of the parents, because that's the reason why the springtime failed. Well, not failed, but it was just so difficult because the parents should not be their children's teachers. They should be on the side. If you need any help, here I am, but they should not be. So synchronous learning would actually take the parent off of that, because then from 8 to 9, they're with Mrs. blah, 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 doing language arts. And from 9 to 10, they're with blah, 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 doing another, so that's the model that I would like to see for my own children, for all the children. And that's all I have to say.
Nicole, I appreciate those comments. However, there are so many parents who won't be home in order to have their children join, especially since we're 3 weeks out and they're going back to work. You know what I mean? I don't know that is the greatest plan.
Well, the other thing that I think Sarah and I were talking about is maybe we can find ways in which we can have small community schools. So all of Clubhouse Road and Bascom and Oliver are all here. Let's find out who is home, who could take, all these kids and make sure they're all on the computer. And, we need to, this is a great community. Let's talk. Let's, really communicate and see if we can make this all work out, because it is weird. It's difficult. It's stressful. I think we need to help each other out.
I'm just going to make a comment because I'm in the same camp as Danelle. I'm slightly disappointed because of the percentage of our parents who did come back and our students who really did want our kids to come back. While I understand the safety concerns for our teachers, our staff, everybody in those buildings, the hybrid model is going to put us back to 3 days a week for all of our students that may or may not be able to be online. We have daycare issues now. We have work issues going on. You know, there's a lot of ramifications to going to the hybrid model. And I've been contacted by a lot of parents that don't know what they're going to do, that do have no idea what they're going to do if we go to a hybrid model. So I just, I am disappointed as well. So, I mean, I know we have to do what's safe for them, but I think that we're also not giving our kids enough credit, that we have kids who have been doing this. I go into stores and you see lots of children, elementary school and up, who are wearing their masks, and they're probably wearing them better than most of the adults are. So I don't think we're giving our kids enough credit either. I think that they're going to be, well, you know, our parents have educated our children to go back to school, which is why our survey says 79% to go back to school. So it is frustrating, and I'm sorry, but that's where I stand.
My bigger concern is that during lunchtime, for example, during lunchtime, they will still be in the same classroom and not wearing masks. So if they cannot guarantee distance, then they are not, period. You know, like even if they're wearing masks during the rest of the day, they're going to have lunch in their classrooms and they're not going to be able to have a distance that we understand is safe. So, like, I just think that we should have been looking at all of this way back in the spring, and here we are 3 weeks out. This is what we do. This is what we did.
To be fair, you know, I do think that this has been an ongoing conversation, and you know, the conversation, you know, unfortunately, that nobody has the answers. That's going to make everybody happy. But I do think that we're slightly unprepared with where our facilities is right now, and in that situation. I also don't know how much of a better situation a lot of other towns are in. You know what I mean? So I think that we're all sort of doing, I'm hoping that we're doing the best that we can. But I do want to give Matt a chance to speak because he has been waiting.
Thank you. Having dealt with this in the healthcare profession now since the beginning, the one thing that you have to remember going forward is that if you try this hybrid plan, which again I'm against, by the way, that nothing is set in stone, and it does not mean that that's what you're going to have to do for the rest of the year, because I personally think that you have to look at this as a community issue, and you have to look at the children that are going to benefit the most from being in school to the children that can do the best not being in school. And that may mean that the high school students are not in school, and we spread students out over all 3 schools that have to be in school if you need to get your distance apart. I mean, that's one thing to look at, because a high school student can do a lot better with distance learning than a 6-year-old. And we all know that. And if you spread the students out over multiple schools, that also solves some of your busing problems that you're talking about. And then that also allows the older children to be home for the little children when they need to be, and not away if it happens to be the split schedule where the young child goes to school on the Monday, Tuesday, and the old child goes to school on the Thursday, Friday. This is going to destroy families and cause lots and lots of problems. This hybrid system, I have a real problem with. And yes, I voted for this, but I was not really voting for the hybrid system. I was voting for the other 2 parts of the system. I was actually dead set against the hybrid part of the system. And, you know, I just think this hybrid system that you have in place here is not going to work for parents. And any parent that I've ever talked to, the hybrid system is the one they hate the most. Because at least if their kids are home 100% of the time, they can tell their work, my children are home. But to tell your work, oh, I can work 2 days, but I can't work 5 days, is not going to work. You are causing tremendous turmoil in these families, and it's huge impact. And I understand we want to be safe here, but I work right next to people every single day within 5 feet, but I'm wearing my mask. I mean, we're inches apart sometimes because that's my job, but I wear my mask. And you know what? I've never tested positive, and I haven't caught COVID, and I've dealt with COVID positive patients many times. That's all I have to say.
Thanks, Matt.
I just have another thing to add. We did put out $120,000 in PPEs to secure safety in the schools, and now it seems like we're backing out saying that's not enough. So I wonder when it will be enough. If we're ever going to have space, it doesn't seem like that will change either. So it's not like waiting a while will help in that situation. I do have a question too about spacing. Bob, with the numbers of people that are not returning, the 21%, that's 175 kids, the spacing was taken into account with those numbers not included. Is that right?
So we didn't know specifically who those children are until the parents send in the form. So we don't have a full understanding of what the impact will be yet on that.
Okay, any other discussion on reopening schools?
I just, one last comment. I heard what you said, Matt, about, your idea about the high school, but I have to say that I think the high school students need to go to school as well. I think they do well on their own. They're capable, but you remember when you were in high school, that social interaction is just such a huge piece of your life. And even going to school 2 days a week, it's what they need. When they're staying home, unsupervised, doing nothing, that's where we get into some problems. So whatever model we choose, we've got to include all 3 schools doing the same plan and all kids going to school.
And we do have to keep in mind that we did approve this reopening plan with all 3 models last month or last meeting. And what Matt said is true about it's not permanent, it's temporary. You have to keep that in mind. And everybody I keep talking to keeps saying, be flexible. And it's a really hard thing for families to be flexible sometimes when they don't have the option to be flexible. I get that. I don't have the option to be flexible. I just think that we all need to have, as open of a mind on this as possible, to get our kids at least somewhat of an education during this time, and hope that we won't be facing this for much longer.
Sarah,
Danelle. Oops, go ahead, Dawn, and then Danelle.
I'm sorry. This is why I don't like this platform, because I can't see who's trying to talk, and I feel like I'm constantly interrupting. So I apologize. With all due respect, what we approved last month was under the information that the health department or the governor would decide if there was hybrid, not that we then. And that was the information that I was constantly provided, that the district would not decide hybrid. We would either decide fully in person or fully online, and that if cases were to uptick, then the local health department would then tell us that we needed to move into that. That was the information that I was given. So that was how I went into this. So I understand that we need to be open-minded, of course, but I do think that there's a different conversation happening now than what was happening last month.
Well, I think what you might be referring to is the information with Uncas Health, and we'd be is that right, Bob? Didn't you say last month that you would be taking advisement from the health districts, the CDC, and all of that? But I don't remember the governor being the one to decide which of those 3 we would choose. I don't remember that part of it.
Yeah, so
the governor has always got the last word, right? That's my point. It wasn't our district necessarily. It was an outside entity that would decide.
So that's partially correct, right? So Dawn is correct that when the plan was originally presented to the board, as I said a little while ago, we were told that we had to open in full, right? And so that was the governor's decision. Since the board approved the plan, the governor has allowed local discretion to come into play regarding whether or not a district opened in full or in hybrid, right? A district would get pushback from the governor via the commissioner of education if a district decided to open with distance learning. And so based upon the local flexibility, right, a lot of superintendents have been recommending to their boards that the district should open in hybrid. That is a decision that you know, a lot of superintendents wanted to do from the get-go, and there were several superintendents that wanted it to open in distance learning right off the bat. They didn't want to have kids in school or staff in school even at the beginning of the school year. And so that is the seeming disconnect between when I presented the plan to what I'm saying now, is that the governor has provided local flexibility. Where the governor comes into play is he could always cancel school again, right? He was never going to be the one that says, hey, school systems move to hybrid. That was always going to be a local decision based upon input from either the state or the local health department. So Uncas Health or the Connecticut Department of Health, right? Because the state had not published what the definition is of a low risk community versus a moderate risk community versus a high risk. That is information that has only recently come out within the last couple of weeks. And that is if you have 10 additional cases over, I think it's 7 days per 100,000 capita, you become a moderate community, right? And so and then they come out and clarified that further, because there was a lot of communities like us, and we're like, we don't have 100,000 people. So less than one person catching it in Lebanon would make me a moderate community. And so then they revised the guidance to say that they were going to disseminate that based on county numbers. So if the county had an increase of 10 or more cases over a 7-day period per 100,000 capita, they would tell you you're now a moderate community. And so we haven't been told that based upon New London County numbers. So the decision to go to the hybrid is my decision, just, you know, based again about safety concerns, right? And early on, I told the board, I think the hybrid model does create a lot of issues, both for us and for families. But when you weigh safety, which is, you know, it is the primary thing that we're doing, right? Parents entrust their children to us for their education, but they expect us to do it in a safe environment and in a safe manner. And it is just becoming more concerning with the recent information regarding uptick in COVID cases amongst our youth, et cetera, the things that I've already stated for the board. And so I do understand, right? And it wasn't, trust me, it was not just a jump to decision to go to hybrid, especially because the parent survey, right? I agree with Danelle. I agree with Alexis. I agree with Matt. I'm not sure Matt mentioned the survey, but parents are wanting to get their kids back into school, right? And that's what we want too. But when I'm also held responsible for the safety of the kids, and that becomes a primary function of my responsibilities, the board's responsibility, and the responsibility of the district as a whole, decisions have to be based sometimes solely on that, and a lot of times solely on that. The board has been prioritizing SIP spending based on safety concerns. And so this decision was, trust me, it was not lightly come to, but it has been in alignment with how we've been making other decisions around safety. And again, I hope it's just the first month of school and then I bring everybody back in. That's what I hope. Right, but I do think we need this brief transition period just to see how things go.
So if I could ask my question, or tie in what Dawn said with what Matt said, the initial plan that we approved was with benchmarks in place. And I don't think that we're close to that moderate number in order to jump into using the hybrid model. You're saying there's upticks in cases. I heard the same terms used in the governor's press conference today. I mean, that can be attributed to a lot of things. Kids are going back to college. They have to be tested. So they're doing more testing. It's not for me to decide. I'm not the expert in that area. But I think the confusion is that the benchmarks were in place and now we're jumping into that benchmark that we haven't met yet.
So that's a good question, right? Or a good point. So the benchmarks were established for transition to hybrid when we were being forced to open in full, right? So the governor's directive was school systems will open in full, and then parents could have an option for distance learning. Once the governor took that requirement away and allowed districts to make local decisions about reopening, again, you could read about it in all the papers. District after district are switching to hybrid. I'm not saying all of them will, but a large majority are going to. There was a survey done by the state, and there was a follow-up survey done by CAPS. It was like a 50-50 split at the last counting, and we were one of the districts that was still reopening in full. Since that survey went out, I've been reading in The Day, which is my local paper down there, and I've been reading in the local papers up here about NFA, about East Lyme, about Groton, about a lot of different school systems that are making the switch. And I don't think any of them are doing it lightly, just as I am not doing it lightly here. It's really, for me, a cautionary maneuver, similar to what we've seen in restaurant reopenings, fitness reopenings, increases in outdoor activities from 10 to 25 to et cetera, right? It's been gradual. Education has been one of the areas where it was not going to be allowed to be gradual. Now local districts have the decision to make it a gradual reopening. And that's why, that's one of the reasons why I'm doing it. I hope that it is short-lived, because the hybrid model, as I've said it before and I say it again, is problematic in a lot of ways. It solves problems, but then it creates a bunch more. I do understand that.
Bob, will you still do the 2 weeks of half days with the hybrid model?
We would, because it will allow us to get together as district staff to like debrief and continue planning.
Any other comments on reopening, or can we move on to the finance report? All right, let's move on to the 2019-2020 budget.
So 1920 budget, the audit is completed. I think Bob could jump in on that.
Yeah, no, the audit's just starting on 1920. It was 1819 that he just finished.
Oh, is that the fact? 1819?
Yeah.
I think it was 1920.
No, he's behind.
Oh, well, thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, I know. It gets confusing with Stephen. In any
Yeah.
case,
He's
as
awake.
far as 1920 goes, the end of year state report is due at the state September 1st. So I'm working on that now. There hasn't been a lot of movement in the projected surplus. As of today, I still have $29,000 of purchase orders that are open with encumbered items. And as Kevin mentioned earlier in his report, he's having difficulty getting supplies, and whether they're tents or other things, and that's reflected in the encumbrances. Over half of those items are in facilities supplies and maintenance supplies and custodial supplies. So it becomes somewhat of a dilemma in that the usual time frame for having monies encumbered in one budget year is 60 days. And at the end of August, that's when 60 days is up, and that's why the state report is due. So we're pressing the vendors to find out, are these materials really going to come here? And we might have to unencumber the money, and then if those items ever do come in, to be charged to the 2021 budget. So that's where we stand on 1920.
Okay, any questions on that? No? All right, thank you. Now 2020, 2021.
So I'll start and then Bob could jump in. So 2020, 2021, the current year budget, we reported at the Finance and Facilities Subcommittee meeting earlier, and then Nicole recapped that for us. We are using money out of the current year budget to make some of these reopening purchases related to COVID-19. A question that was asked during the subcommittee meeting was, where's the money coming from? Because, none of this is budgeted. And so I would let the board know that there is an additional $160 million that's going to be made available to education systems to help cover costs for reopening, purchasing of COVID-19, et cetera, PPE stuff. So Bob is working with the district administrators to maintain a list of all our expenditures. We're just not sure yet how those monies will be distributed, what formula the state is going to be using. I'll remind the board that when we had the original allotment from the CARES Act, that was $111 million that came to the state of Connecticut. 47,000 and change found its way to Lebanon. So how much out of the 160 plus the governor reallocated an additional 15 million. So there's actually 175 million that's going to be coming out to school systems. How much of that we're going to see is yet to be determined. It will not. So Bob reported that it's not going to be coming to us via Title I, which was how we got the original 47,000 and change. It's going to be a different formula. We just don't know what that is yet. Bob?
Yeah, I guess the one thing I would add, in with any budget year, especially at the beginning of the year, there's always a degree of uncertainty in certain expenses, but and those areas are always health insurance enrollments, new hires, salaries, and some special ed expenses. But there's always been you could rely on some history and experience, and there's a certain level of predictability to their uncertainty. I know that might sound a little like double talk, but as a finance manager, we really dislike the uncertainty that the COVID-19 situation brings, because we don't know exactly what we have to keep spending money on as it changes, and trying to predict the need going forward. And the source of funding is so nebulous sometimes. I really dislike it. I'm sure as a board, you must dislike it too. It's just a very difficult situation right now, and I just wanted to say that little piece.
Thank you, Bob. All right, any questions on this 2020, 2021 budget? So the $47,000 we will be getting obviously doesn't come close to the COVID expenses given to us in the report. So we will have to take that, and discuss that further.
So the 47 is already earmarked, right? That's the math tutor position at the elementary school and picking up parts of the salary of our reading specialist at the middle school.
Okay. And then where would the money come from? And we can talk about this in the action items if you'd rather, but do you have a plan for where the fourth grade teacher would, where would we get that money from?
So as Bob gets a more definite number on our salary line and health insurance line, right? We haven't completed all our summer hires yet. So we don't know what the impacts are going to be. So if the funds are not available in the appropriate line items, the salary line item, then, eventually we're going to be bringing forth, budget transfers to cover these costs, which could result in either hard or soft freezes of other budget line items as we move forward into the year. This is something that we've encountered for other reasons in previous school years, but we may enter into some budget freezes a little bit earlier this year than we have in the past, right? So that is yet to be determined.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? No. Okay, we can move along to the new business, the first reading of the COVID-19 temporary policy packet. As I mentioned before, the policy committee has yet to meet on this. This is a packet that was put together by Shipman and Goodwin. Recommended that we adopt these policies, and after the policy committee meets, expect to hear more from that. Moving on to the action items. Is there a motion on the floor?
I'll make a motion that we act on the 1-year interim position at LES.
Are you moving to add the position, Nicole?
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Motion by Nicole. Is there a second?
I will second, and hoping that we go back to in person and not hybrid. But yes, I do.
Okay, motion by Nicole, seconded by Alexis. Any further discussion on this topic? Bob, do you want to add anything?
I don't think so. I think I addressed the need already. If there are other questions, though, I'd be happy to entertain them.
Okay. Any discussion?
So, as Alexis said, if we were to stick to hybrid and not return to full, or we were to go to distance learning, do we still need the position?
So if I knew right now that we were going to be in hybrid or out to distance learning for the rest of the school year, no, we would not need it. But the expectation is that we're coming back with all the kids in the school.
Well, I just did the math, and if you get 23 and 25 kids in 3 classes and you divide that by 4, teachers are still having like 17, 18 kids in their class. So it makes sense to get a 4th teacher.
Did this number suddenly jump from last year when they were 3rd graders?
So the number did go up due to recent enrollments. but the decision was not to add another teacher last year, at the end of last year for this year. We, at the time, the class sizes were in the upper teens to low 20s, which we thought were acceptable numbers for fourth grade kids. Maybe all hovering around the 20 mark, but now they're going up into the lower 20s to mid 20s, and so that's why we have the need.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Oh, go ahead, Dawn.
I'm just wondering about other grades. I wish that we had enrollment numbers in front of us, because I don't think that we can actually make decisions without knowing that, because how is second grade different than fourth grade at this point? Like, second grade has only needed 3, and apparently fourth grade only needed 3 until now. So I just don't know.
Well, if the numbers were such in other grades that we needed to add staff, I'd be talking to you about that. So right now, the number increases in fourth grade.
I appreciate that. I just wish I had the numbers in front of me. That would help me feel informed.
So do you, Bob, or maybe just Rita, know the average class size in like, say, first, second, third, and fourth grade offhand?
Yes, Sarah, I do.
Yeah, thank you,
Sarah?
Rita.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Yep, we're at about 18 in first grade. We're at 19 in second. Same with third, 19 or 20. It depends on the class right now. And at fourth grade, we're at 24, 20, 24.
Oh, thank you, Rita. That's very helpful.
Oh, and I'm sorry, in kindergarten, we have 11 new enrollments in kindergarten in the last week or so. So we're probably at about 14. I haven't placed all those into Power School because we have to make sure we have all their health registration.
All right, can you ask, because first grade now has 4 teachers. So so I don't think everybody knows how many teachers are in each level. So if we could talk about teachers and classes, that might help people to understand what we're actually looking at, because there aren't 3 teachers in every grade like there maybe was before.
Right, exactly. So there are 4 kindergartens presently in kindergarten. And so, as I said, they're somewhere in the ranges of like 13 to 15. In first, and then we're on first grade. That's where we moved to second grade and teachers. So now we have 4 first grades. And those are the class sizes that range 17, 18-ish, which would be similar, as Nicole mentioned. In fourth grade, if we added that 4th, they would go to similar numbers as first grade did. And then in second grade, we have 3 class sizes of 19, 20. And also in third grade, there are 3 similar size. And then fourth grade, we're requesting that additional due to the 24 average to make it more like first grade. So in my classrooms right now, when I get close to that 20, anything after 20, I have recommended that we change the draft to the reopening and not say 6 feet, but more of a range between 4 to 6. I also have irregular. When you do your walkthroughs in my school on Friday, you see our desks are triangular shaped, so it's difficult to measure from desk to desk. Rather, it's best to measure where the child's actually be sitting. That's why the other recommendation of adding that fourth grade, because it would be very difficult to even put 4 feet in those rooms with 24. Does that help clarify? Does that
yes,
help clarify?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, I had a motion on the floor and a second to approve the 1-year position for a fourth grade teacher at LES. All those in favor, please say or raise your hand and say your name if you could. All right. I see Nicole, Alexis, Danow,
John's a yes.
John, Mark,
Dawn's a
Dawn.
yes.
Dawn, thank you. Thank you, Mark. All and myself approve. Matt, all those opposed?
I'm opposed.
Matt's opposed.
Yes.
Thank you. And we have no abstentions, I believe. I think I got everybody. Great. That motion passes. Thank you very much.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, seeing on our agenda, item number 9, anticipated executive session. Is there a motion on the floor?
Motion
For
to executive session. Sorry, Alexis.
No, go ahead. I'll second.
And for the purpose of discussing superintendent evaluation and invite the superintendent, Nicole?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
To executive session for superintendent evaluation. Yes.
Thank you. With the superintendent. And Alexis, did you second?
I did.
Okay, thank you. Motion by Nicole, seconded by Alexis. All those, any discussion? No, all those, Dawn, discussion? Oh, this platform. No. All right, all those in favor of moving into executive session, please raise your hand or say your name. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so I see Nicole, Dawn, Alexis, Danelle, Matt.
Yep.
John?
John's a yes.
Mark? Okay, motion approves unanimously. Thank you very much.
So do we have to log out and log back in?
We do have to sign out of this one and log into the executive session meeting. We will come back into this one at the end of our executive session.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.